Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Leverbolt 76. I'm Chad, and today we're going to talk about the 250-3000. Man, this thing was fast. All right, let's get after it. So before we get started, I have to admit that the 250-3000 is one of my favorite cartridges, and this rifle here is one of my favorite rifles. So previous to the 250-3000, you had the 303 Savage and the 22 High Power, both rimmed cases. The 250-3000 is the first rimless case, and I really think that's when things get interesting. So the 250-3000 was developed in 1914 by Charles Newton, and he did this by taking a 30-06 case, shortening it, necking it down to a 257. He steepened the shoulders and gave it a long neck. And with an 87 grain bullet, this little cartridge could achieve 3,000 feet per second, making it the first commercial cartridge to be able to do so, which was quite an achievement. Now, he recommended to the good folks at Savage that they load the bullet upon release with a 100 grain bullet, making it more useful on deer-sized game. The people at Savage did not care so much for this idea, as a 100 grain bullet slowed it down to 2,800 feet per second. And somehow the 250-2800 just doesn't have the same ring to it. So they went ahead and released the cartridge with the 87 grain bullet, achieving the 3,000 feet per second, and the rest is history. Now, it wasn't too much longer before Savage and other manufacturers like Remington and Winchester made 100 grain bullets for this cartridge. One of the earlier issues with this rifle is it was released with a 1 in 14 twist in the barrel for the 87 grain bullet. And as Savage and other manufacturers began loading their cartridges with 100 grain bullets, they found out that the rifle had trouble stabilizing that longer bullet, such as this center bullet, which is the Remington soft point. Winchester then developed a round nose silver tip, which was just slightly shorter, maybe a 1/16 or 3/32 of an inch shorter than the soft point or pointed bullets, making it much easier to stabilize. Also, this bullet on the left is a hollow point bullet, which is also slightly shorter. And I've shot all three of these bullets through this upper rifle, and it does in fact group much better with the Winchester silver tips. So, as it turns out, Mr. Newton was right all along. But the thing about it is, with modern powders, you are able to achieve the 3,000 feet per second with a 100 grain bullet these days. Let's look at the chart. I've matched up the 250-3000 Savage with a 100 grain silver tip, with the 243 Winchester with a 100 grain soft point, the 6.5 Creedmoor with a 120 grain, and the 30-30 Winchester, just because it's a doggy old cartridge and I like to pick on it, with a 125 grain hollow point. So if we start at the muzzle, the velocity on the 250 Savage is just over 3,000 feet per second. The 243 Winchester coming in at 3,100, 6.5 Creedmoor at 2,900, and the old 30-30 coming in at 2,570. And if we go out to 100 yards, you've got the velocity on the Savage hanging in there at 2747 with 1,677 foot-pounds energy, and the 243 doing pretty well at 2839 and 1,790 foot-pounds. The 6.5 Creedmoor still doing pretty good at just under 2,700 feet per second, and then the old 30-30 at just under 2,100 feet per second and 1,210 foot-pounds. So you can see it's starting to drop off pretty good there.
Then let's go ahead and skip out to 400 yards. The old Savage has still got almost 2,100 feet per second and almost 1,000 foot-pounds. So, I mean, looking at that at 400 yards, it's pushing it. 400 yards is a long poke, but I think that's still a good deer rifle. I think 300 yards would be better, but if you had to do it, I think you could reach out there to 400 yards with this cartridge. The 243, a little bit better. It's coming in at 2138 feet per second with just over 1,000 foot-pounds. So the Savage isn't really far below that. And then the 6.5 Creedmoor, having that higher ballistic coefficient. I mean, even with a 120 grain bullet, um, still just over 2,000 feet per second and 1,143 foot-pounds. Now, the poor old 30-30, it's ran out of gas about 100 yards. So 320 foot-pounds at just under 1,100 feet per second. It's done. But as you can see, I think you could make a pretty good argument for that 250 Savage is definitely a good deer rifle out to 300-400 yards, and possibly even a solid elk rifle at 100-200 yards. So it's a little shy there, but I mean I've killed enough elk with it.
Okay, let's talk about the rifles. So this upper one was given to me by my grandfather many years ago, and the lower one I just picked up at a gun show quite a few years ago. Now the interesting thing about these rifles is they were both manufactured in 1929. The upper one has a standard barrel, the lower one is a takedown model. Outside of that, they're almost identical. Now they're both outfitted with scopes, which is not the way they left the factory. But it was common practice in the 50s and 60s to take your rifle down and have your gunsmith drill and tap 4 holes in it, put some Weaver mounts on top, and next thing you know, you've got a scope. So if we get into these scopes, the lower one is actually the earlier one, and it was manufactured in the late 50s, early 60s. It's a K2.5-C3 Weaver. These were good scopes. They had great optics, very clear. The only problem was they had plastic on either end for the lens cell holders. And if you went out in too cold a weather, that plastic could crack, allowing moisture to get into your scope. Due to the complaints of that scope, in the 70s, Weaver came out with an all-steel model. On either side, you have steel right here. So this is the better version. You've still got great optics on that. This scope is the C3-1, and it's been a very good scope. The lower one has fine crosshairs on it. The upper one has the post crosshair. So this is the scope I pretty much learned to shoot off of, and I love it. So as you can see with both of these rifles, they're in good shape, and as I say in all of my videos, unless I'm at the range, my guns are not loaded. This one here does not have a lot of bluing left on it. I think I've worn a fair amount of it off, but as you can see, it has the correct front sight, correct rear sight. You've got the steel metal butt plate with the SVG. Everything about this gun, aside from the scope, is correct, as well as the lower one. They're both in pretty good shape. This one has been refinished. The bluing's very good on it. Whoever refinished the stock did not do a very good job with that. I think one of these days I'll refinish it properly. But the bluing looks pretty good on it. And honestly, to me, if I buy a Model 99, it's probably not going to leave my possession. So if I can get a better deal on one that's been re-blued, get it for a little bit cheaper, I'm going to do that because it looks good, and I don't really have any interest in its value necessarily. So I'm fine with something being re-blued every now and then, but that stock does bother me, and I need to refinish it correctly, I think. Maybe one of these days we'll make that a video on how to properly refinish a Savage stock. But at any rate, these two rifles are both great rifles, and it's been quite a while since I've shot this upper one. I've never shot the takedown, so let's go out to the range and see how they do. All right, we made it out to the range. Just to get you guys filled in, I haven't shot this old gun for 15-20 years. And then the takedown here, I've never shot it before. I picked it up at a gun show quite a few years ago, and it's just set in the gun cabinet. But I went ahead and shot a few through them at 50 yards, dirty up the barrel a little bit, and see if they're even on paper. This old girl's still doing pretty good. This one's off a little bit, but it'll be good enough for today. So what I'm going to do is, once I get ready here, take the camera down to the 100-yard target so you guys can see it, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this was a 100-yard target. This first group here, that was my standard barrel, 250, and this one down here, that's the takedown. And boy, I gotta say, that's not a bad group. This one, maybe 1.25 inches between these two guys here, and yeah, I don't know, we've probably got 1.5 inches here, 2.25 on these guys, but for what, 93-year-old guns, that's not too bad. All right, let's go out to the 200, 300, and 400-yard plates, see if we can get anything. Okay, we're set up at the 200, 300, and 400-yard range. That sun's starting to come up and make things pretty bright, so I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, take that camera out there a little bit closer for you.
Okay, well, I'm getting fat and out of shape. That the first 3, again, were the standard barrel. Second 3 were the takedown, and a couple of them sounded pretty good from back there. I don't know, I couldn't tell with all of them. Hopefully it shows up better on the camera. Alright guys, well, thanks for watching.
Hey guys, just finished up the edit on that video there, and as I'm watching the footage shooting at the steel plates, I can't tell if I hit that 300-yard target or not. It was the second shot out of all of them. If anybody else can figure that out, put it in the comments section below, would you? Let me know if I hit that thing. You know, while it's on my mind though, I was shooting 2 rifles there, 93 years old, had a 2.5 power and a 3 power scope that are 50, 60 years old. That's not too bad for 400 yards. I'd like to see one of these tacta nerds out there with their 18-inch barreled 300 blackout and 10 by 500 scope, see if they could do that. Alright, anyway, we'll see you next time. Thank you.